Now this is what sort of, that day I was headed down to Chase City for a forum, and then we were going down almost to the North Carolina border, about 1 mile from the border. I think we were, Brenda, for a
Boydton.
In Boydton, yeah, good town, Boydton, for a outing that they were having at a local rescue fire department there. And we were going to, probably it was going to be 11, 12 o'clock before we got home that night. And this sort of reinforced me, that thinking that day and that walk with that dog would reinforce me as to why somebody needs to step up and do this. This country is in trouble. And this is what started me on this journey a number of months ago. When I found out that Virgil wasn't going to run, and I said, we have got to have some good people that are willing to go to Washington and to change this direction that our country is headed in. Now, we all know about the bailouts that shouldn't have ever happened. We all know about the takeover of American companies. We know about Obamacare and what that's going to do to us. If cap and trade passes, I guarantee you that's going to be worse than anything that is brought about in the energy crisis in this country. We all know that we need to start looking at looking internally to become energy independent. Now, I'm all for alternative sources of energy, but until that is economical, I'm not in favor of greatly raising the price of energy to the point that all of our bills go up, all of our individual bills go up, the trucking companies and everything that goes along with cap and trade. One thing I understand about cap and trade because of my financial background is that this is a huge scheme for Wall Street. I mean, you have to realize what is going to happen, because what they're going to do is start trading these carbon offsets on the stock market or in a commodities market. I'm sure that's what it's going to be. And Goldman Sachs is already getting lined up to do that. And that's what this is all really about. We're going to create something out of nothing. And what that's going to do is devalue our dollar. It's going to raise the price of energy tremendously, and it's going to devalue our dollar. Well, I think that this is the kind of thinking that we need in Washington these days. Now, I know Paul's an attorney, and I hate to say this about attorneys, but I think we got too many of them.
Those are trial lawyers.
That's another breed.
Yeah. Steve's a good lawyer. See, we need.
There you go. Yeah, and Steve too. I didn't say there was bad lawyers at all. But I think we might. I think what I bring to Washington, or will bring to Washington, is a background of having worked in the financial management business. I spent 23 years in the banking business, another 19 and with my own small company and a financial services company. I have learned how to balance government budgets. And believe me, they're different than what your budget at home is or what a company budget is. They're much more different because there's a whole lot of hidden things in there that really takes kind of lifting up the hood and getting down into it to find out where they are. Now, several of my opponents are out there saying, well, I'm going to cut the spending of the federal government by 50% first or second year. And you can't do that, because what I understand, because I've been there, is you start talking about cutting a budget and you go to like the police department and you say, okay, well, if we cut this budget, then what's it going to do to response times? What's it going to do to the crime rate? You have to be able to think through these things. Now, by the same token, there is waste there that you can find, but you got to also recognize that it does cost some money to run this country. Taxes are another thing that we need to deal with. We have absolutely got to reform the tax code in the United States. One of the reasons I hear all the time when I go down in the southeastern part of the district, particularly down in Martinsville, where Brenda is from and where her family lives, where her uncle just got laid off from Stanley Furniture, when they laid off another 500 jobs. They're closing and moving to China or moving offshore. Well, they've got different problems down there, that's for sure, and they need jobs. The only way that we're going to create those jobs, we are not going to be able to bring our labor costs down to what third world countries charge for labor. So what we have to do is reduce the taxes, reduce the accounting that's necessary for corporations now, and with that, then we can bring the price of providing services down. And I think that's really what we need to do in order to bring manufacturing back to this country, because we do need to bring it back. Another thing that we hear about is the fair tax, and I'm a big supporter of the fair tax. But the fair tax is not something that can be done easily. It's going to take some time to do it. And the reason it's going to take time to do the fair tax is because it'll take a constitutional amendment. We have to repeal the 16th Amendment, do away with the IRS. Because if you don't do that, what you get is a VAT tax, a value-added tax, and it's just piled on top of the income tax that we have now. And that's really what I think the Obama administration would like to do. Bill, thank you for coming. We'll get to you in just a minute. The fair tax is obviously a step in the right direction, and we need to start moving towards that, but it's a couple of years to do that. And we need more immediate help here. So one of the things that I'm considering is whether or not a flat tax would make some sense, which would work inside of the existing IRS and simply reduce some of the taxes. We could reduce the taxes on our corporations. And I think that if we could, once we get to the point where we can implement the fair tax, I think that will bring manufacturing back to the United States. I also think it'll bring foreign countries here to do business, because it'll fundamentally restructure the tax code such that, and not only the tax code, companies spend an awful lot of time with all their accounting departments and have to keep up with all the taxes, the tax information that's necessary. I spend a lot of time in my business. I say a lot of times that if we went with the fair tax, it would cut out a big part of my business, but I plan on being in Congress, so I'm not going to worry about that business. I want to thank all of you all who have come out here tonight and to be with us, and I appreciate it very much. I want to put a little pitch in for some money. That was what this is all about. This is an evening to collect money. One of the things that we've had a problem with in our campaign is raising money, and that's because a lot of people are very nervous about a 7-person primary. And we right now really need to raise about $10,000 more so that we can have a final push here at the end. We've only got like 13 days left before this primary is going to be, and we need to put some advertising out there, and we quite frankly have got to have some money in order to do that. That's going to be the key to it. This is a very tight race. The most recent poll we have is 48% undecided on it, and Paul knows what that means. That means a whole lot of people out there still sitting on the fence trying to decide, and we need to get our message out. We need to get the message out that I'm the only candidate in this particular race that has a solid background and a solid record of conservatives who has never gone back on those principles. And Paul mentioned it earlier, and those of you who are around here, you know many, many times that I've been the #1 of a 5-to-1 vote on our Board of Supervisors. And that's because I was not going to break my principles in order to vote or go along to get along. And that was not something that I'm willing to do here. It's not something that I would be willing to do in Washington. And some of you have been to some of the meetings. I know Steve has been to some of these meetings. You know that you get demonized an awful lot as being a terrible person, because you might want to make sure that businesses are able to flourish here in town, and that's destroying the countryside. Well, I can tell you that the people who develop in this community, they don't want to destroy the community. They really want to build it, and they want to make sure it's rich. But you've got to keep commerce going. We have to keep jobs here. We have to keep that going. This is the type mentality and knowledge that I'll bring to Washington, D.C.